Jax Cole never expected the day his quiet Brooklyn neighborhood would be the center of an interstellar event. It was supposed to be just another slow afternoon in his tattoo shop, buzzing needles, music softly playing, and the familiar smell of ink and leather. But then, the sky tore open with a low humming roar, and a massive ship descended, casting a shadow over the street. Jax froze, his eyes widening as neighbors spilled onto the sidewalks, pointing and whispering. The ship wasn't like anything from movies or news reports. It shimmered with iridescent panels that shifted colors, almost alive. From its belly, a group of tall, scaled creatures emerged. The Rithari, with sharp eyes and imposing presence. The city buzzed with alarm, but surprisingly, the aliens didn't move like invaders. They radiated curiosity. Their leader, a tall Rithari with deep emerald scales and golden eyes, stepped forward and spoke through a translator device. "We come in peace and seek the one who carries the marks of legends." Jax shifted uncomfortably. The alien's gaze fell on his arms and neck, where tattoos in vibrant blues, reds, and blacks told stories winding across his skin. To the Rithari, these markings weren't just ink. They were battle scars, proof of survival and strength. "You are the warrior?" the leader asked, his voice deep but respectful. Jax laughed nervously. No, I'm just a tattoo artist. I design art. These, just stories and symbols, nothing to do with fighting." But the translator's circuit struggled with the concept. The Rithari couldn't comprehend art as mere decoration. To them, marks meant legacy, history, honor. And Jax's skin told a language they could only understand as proof of battles, fought and won. Before he could object further, a group of Rithari guards gently but firmly lifted Jax, leading him toward their ship. The crowd watched in stunned silence as he was ushered aboard, becoming a symbol, an accidental hero of humanity's strength. Inside the flagship Chartel, Jax's nerves hit a new high. The ship hummed with unfamiliar technology, corridors, glowing with alien glyphs and panels that shifted color. The air smelled faintly metallic but breathable. The Rithari leader introduced himself as Kajul and explained the weight his tattoos carried in their culture. "Each mark tells a story of survival, courage, and victory. You wear your history on your skin." Jax swallowed hard, realizing he'd have to play along, at least for now. "I'm not a warrior. I tell stories through art. Each tattoo is something I designed or chose because it meant something personal, nothing to do with battles." Kajul nodded slowly. "Stories are power, but where there is power, there is conflict. To us, your marks are proof you have faced trials and overcome." Jax looked down at a large tattoo stretching across his chest. A koi fish swimming upstream, battling a dragon. In his world, it was a symbol of perseverance and transformation. To the Rithari, it was a trophy from a fierce duel. The alien leader's gaze sharpened. "You will share these stories with us. The conclave awaits your arrival." Jax's heart pounded. The conclave was a gathering of champions from across the galaxy, a place where warriors proved their strength and legacies. How was he, a Brooklyn tattoo artist with no combat experience, supposed to survive that? He forced a smile. "Sure, I'll tell you my stories." As the ship lifted off, Brooklyn shrinking beneath him, Jax realized one thing. His life was no longer his own. The ink on his skin had turned him into something he never wanted to be, a legend. The walls of the Rithari flagship shimmered with soft light as Jax Cole was led deeper inside. Every corridor seemed alive, glowing with strange symbols that shifted beneath his gaze. Though the technology dazzled, Jax's mind raced with one question. How was he supposed to explain his tattoos to beings who believed every mark was forged in fire and battle? Kajul, the Rithari leader, sat Jax down in a grand chamber. Around them, holograms of other warriors from distant worlds flickered. Giants covered in scars, lithe figures with embedded armor, and creatures whose very skin seemed woven with stories of conflict. Jax felt painfully ordinary. To these beings, he was an enigma wrapped in ink. "Tell us the story of your marks," Kajul commanded, his voice resonating with authority. Jack swallowed and glanced at his own arms, where swirling dragons, skulls, entwined with roses and mythical creatures were etched in vibrant detail. To him, each tattoo was a piece of art chosen during different chapters of his life. A koi fish symbolizing perseverance, a compass for direction, a phoenix rising from ashes. But to Kajul and his people, they were records of battle, trophies, of survival. Jax began hesitantly. Well, the koi fish, that one's about swimming upstream, about fighting your own battles in life. Not with weapons, but with hope. Kajul's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. A battle of spirit, then. Encouraged, Jack smiled. Exactly. The skull with roses. It's a reminder that even in death, there can be beauty. It's about loss and growth. The Rithari leader nodded slowly. Stories of hardship and victory. But the translator technology struggled with the nuance of art as separate from combat. The Rithari vocabulary lacked words for decoration or expression. For them, every mark on flesh had to be earned, a visible proof of courage. As Jax told more tales, Kajul's respect grew. The alien warrior listened as if deciphering a new language, one told not in wounds or scars, but in colors and shapes. Yet there was doubt among the other delegates. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. How could this man be a champion when he carried no weapons, no trophies of battle? Suddenly, a delegate from the Zenthari, a species known for their strict warrior code, stepped forward, his voice sharp. What honor does a man hold who tells stories without proof? Words cannot win battles. Jax felt the weight of the room's gaze. His mind raced, searching for a way to prove himself without fighting. I don't need weapons to show strength, he said, voice steady despite the pressure. These tattoos represent every challenge I've faced and every lesson I've learned. Strength isn't just about fighting others. It's about facing yourself. Kajul's eyes gleamed with approval. Perhaps the greatest battles are those within. The room quieted, tension easing but not disappearing. Jax knew this was only the beginning. The Rithari and others would want more than stories. They would want proof of his legacy. But how could he provide that without weapons or armor? Just then, a holographic image flickered above the chamber floor. The announcement of the Great Conclave. It was a test, a challenge, a gathering of the galaxy's finest warriors where each must prove their worth. Jax's heart tightened. He was a stranger in this cosmic arena, a man whose stories were ink and imagination, not swords and strategy. But there was no turning back. The Rithari believed his tattoos told a tale worth honoring, and now Jax had to live up to the legend they had created. As the delegates prepared to depart, Kajul placed a scaled hand on Jax's shoulder. Your journey begins at the Conclave. There, your stories will be tested. Jax nodded, breath steady despite the storm inside. He was no warrior, but perhaps his art could become something greater than anyone expected. Jax Cole stood at the airlock of the Rithari flagship Shartel, the hum of alien engines vibrating through his bones. Beyond the heavy door lay the Great Conclave, the legendary gathering of champions from across the galaxy. He could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes, some curious, some skeptical, waiting to see if this tattooed man was worthy of their respect. Jax swallowed hard. He was a tattoo artist from Brooklyn, not a warrior trained in combat or strategy. Yet here he was, stepping into a realm where strength was measured in battles fought and enemies vanquished. The ink on his skin told stories, but stories alone wouldn't be enough. Kajul's voice came through his communicator, calm and resolute. Remember, Jax, the Conclave honors legacy, not just weapons. Your art is your history. Taking a deep breath, Jax pushed open the door. The Conclave chamber was vast and unlike anything he had ever imagined. Massive stone pillars spiraled toward a ceiling lost in shadows, and alien banners waved silently in an unseen breeze. Delegates from dozens of species stood in small groups, their forms ranging from insectoid to ethereal. All carried their own marks of honor, scars, implants, glowing tattoos, but none quite like Jax's. Whispers followed him as he moved through the crowd. Some admired his bold designs, others doubted his place among them. But one thing was clear. His presence was unexpected, and that alone demanded attention. Jax was led to a raised platform at the center of the chamber. Kajul addressed the Yao assembly, praising Jax's courage and the powerful stories etched in his tattoos. He carries the spirit of humanity, a species unbroken by adversity. The room hummed with murmurs. Then, a booming voice interrupted. General Vurak of the Zenthari stepped forward, towering and armed with glistening armor and weapons. "Legacy without strength is meaningless," Vurak declared. "Let this artist prove his worth with action, not words." Jax's heart pounded. He had expected this challenge, but he wasn't a fighter. "I don't wield weapons," he said, voice steady but calm. "My strength is in the stories I carry, the lessons inked into my skin. I propose a different kind of trial." The chamber fell silent, curiosity piqued. "A contest of legacy," Jax continued. "We inspire others to carry their own stories, to mark their victories not in bloodshed, but in meaning. Whoever influences more delegates to embrace their history through art will be the true champion." Vurak's eyes narrowed, but after a tense pause, he nodded. "Very well. Let the contest begin." The next days passed in a whirlwind of activity. Jax found himself immersed in a world of alien customs, languages, and rituals. He studied other warriors, learning what their marks meant and what stories they longed to tell. At first, the other delegates were hesitant to approach a human with no combat skills. But when Jax began offering designs, symbols tailored to their histories and cultures, walls started to crumble. His tattoos became badges of pride, uniting individuals and species. Delegates from the ethereal Kyle Thari tribe asked for shimmering inks that represented rebirth. The stoic Dravni warriors requested geometric patterns symbolizing unity and resilience. Slowly, Jax's art was becoming the conclave's new language. Even Vurak's second-in-command, a fierce woman mourning her lost sister, sought out Jax's designs. His tattoos weren't just ink. They were vessels of memory and hope. Jax realized that while he might never wield a blade or shoot a weapon, he was wielding something just as powerful: connection. As the final day of the conclave approached, Jax stood ready. His legacy wasn't forged in battles fought, but in lives touched, and that was the greatest strength of all. The great conclave buzzed with a new kind of energy. For the first time in its long history, a tattoo artist from Earth was not just a curiosity, but a catalyst. Jax Cole's ink had begun to ripple across alien cultures, bridging gaps that weapons and words never could. Jax spent his days in a wide chamber near the center of the conclave hall, surrounded by an array of inks, pigments, and alien materials he'd never seen before. He experimented with glowing fluids from the Kailthari, metallic powders harvested from asteroid belts, and even bio-inks that adapted to the wearer's emotions. His art was evolving, no longer just stories on skin, but living, breathing, symbols that could change and grow. Delegates from countless species came to him with stories etched in memory and spirit, seeking tattoos that carried meaning deeper than words. A massive, gentle Garathian requested a swirling pattern that symbolized his tribe's journey through the stars. A slender, winged Virelli asked for an intricate design that honored her lost homeworld. Each commission was a collaboration, a moment of connection between alien and artist. Jax marveled at how his tattoos transcended language barriers. The art became a universal currency of respect, identity, and pride. The Rithari watched with quiet satisfaction as their new champion wove unity with ink. Kajul often stood nearby, sharing stories of his people's marks, each a testament to courage, survival, and honor. Jax listened and learned, his own tattoos feeling heavier with new meaning. But not all were pleased. General Vurak's skepticism hardened into quiet disdain. He respected strength forged in battle, not through symbols. "This is no way to prove one's worth," Vurak muttered to his closest officers. "Markings are only as valuable as the blood that seals them." Jax heard the whispers but refused to let doubt cloud him. Instead, he focused on the faces around him, faces lighting up as they chose their new marks, a ripple of hope spreading through hardened warriors. One afternoon, a tense moment arrived when Vurak himself approached Jax's workspace, towering and silent. "Show me the strength in your art," Vurak challenged, voice low but edged with curiosity. Jax nodded, undeterred. He offered Vurak a design, a symbol crafted from intertwined blades and vines, representing balance between power and growth. The general's stern eyes flickered with something like grudging respect. Slowly, even Vurak's inner circle began to seek Jax's work. The general's second-in-command, a fierce warrior named Sarah, approached quietly. She carried a deep sorrow in her eyes, the loss of a sister during a brutal campaign. "I want a mark to remember her," Sarah said, voice barely above a whisper. Jax took a moment and then sketched a delicate design, a phoenix rising from ashes entwined with twin stars. It was a symbol of hope and remembrance, one that could never fade. As Sarah inked the tattoo on her arm, she glanced at Jax with a rare softness. "Thank you." That moment marked a turning point. The conclave's atmosphere shifted from rigid competition to shared understanding. Tattoos no longer represented just individual victories, they were badges of collective memory and healing. News spread fast. Delegates from species long at odds started exchanging designs, building new alliances forged not with weapons but with ink. Jax realized his role was no longer just an artist, but a bridge between worlds. The very thing that made him an outsider, his tattoos, was becoming the galaxy's new language of honor. As the days grew closer to the final challenge, Jax felt a quiet confidence settle in his chest. He was ready to face whatever came next, not with fists, but with stories and symbols that carried the strength of countless lives. The great conclave had shifted, but not everyone was convinced. Jax Cole's quiet revolution through ink and stories had unsettled many traditionalists. Among them, General Vurak of the Zenthari remained the most vocal. His fierce eyes burned with skepticism as he watched the crowds gather around Jax's makeshift tattoo studio. "Strength is forged in battle," Vurak declared one evening before the assembly. His voice echoed through the stone halls, cold and unwavering. "Legacy earned by scars and blood, not by colors on skin. This contest is meaningless unless proven by combat." Jax listened calmly, knowing this confrontation was inevitable. He respected Vurak's strength and discipline, but knew that the definition of honor was broader than any single species had ever imagined. When Vurak stepped forward and formally challenged him, the chamber fell into silence. "Prove your worth in a trial of champions," Vurak demanded. "Not with words, but with strength and resolve. If you cannot fight, then you are no champion." Jax met Vurak's fierce gaze. "I may not wield a weapon, but I can offer something else," he said steadily. "Let our contest be not of swords or fists, but of legacy. Let us inspire others not through destruction, but through meaning. Whoever touches the hearts of the conclave's delegates the most will prove their true strength." The hall murmured with surprise and intrigue. Vurak's eyes narrowed, but after a long pause he nodded. "Very well. The contest of inspiration begins." The challenge was unlike anything Jax had expected. Instead of physical combat, he was tasked with creating tattoos that would inspire courage, unity, and remembrance among the galaxy's greatest warriors. Each delegate would choose a design that spoke to their soul, a symbol they would carry as a badge of honor. Jax worked tirelessly, drawing on stories from Earth and the countless cultures he had come to know. His art transformed into living history, each tattoo a beacon of hope or a reminder of sacrifice. As the days passed, more and more delegates sought his work. Even General Vurak found himself intrigued, watching quietly as his own soldiers returned from sessions with new symbols of strength etched on their skin. The general's second-in-command, Sarah, bore a phoenix tattoo that told a story of loss and rebirth. a mark she wore with quiet pride. But the real test came when Vurak himself accepted Jax's offer to design a mark for him. Jax crafted a symbol of intertwined blades and roots, a representation of strength grounded in wisdom. When Vurak inked the design onto his forearm, the stern warrior's expression softened for a moment, a rare crack in his armor. The contest culminated in a ceremony where each delegate shared the meaning behind their tattoos. Stories of courage, forgiveness, and hope filled the chamber. The power of Jax's art was undeniable. It reached beyond species and language, uniting warriors who had once been enemies. In the end, the conclave declared the contest a tie, not a victory for combat, but a triumph for connection. Jax's legacy was now part of the galaxy's history, a new chapter written in ink and spirit. As the ceremony closed, Kajul approached Jax, placing a scaled hand on his shoulder. "You have proven something greater than strength," he said. "You have shown us the power of stories and the courage to be different." Jax smiled, feeling a warmth that had little to do with the glowing inks around him. He had come to the stars as a tattoo artist, but he would leave as something more, a keeper of legends, a healer through art. The echoes of the conclave's decision still hummed in the air as Jax Cole found himself surrounded by a sea of faces, some friendly, some wary, all changed by the power of his tattoos. His role had grown beyond that of a mere artist. He was now a symbol, a bridge between worlds, carrying a weight heavier than any he had ever imagined. Back aboard the Rithari flagship Chartel, Jax sat quietly in a chamber lined with the banners of every species present at the conclave. The walls bore countless marks of honor, scars, tattoos, symbols etched in flesh and metal, each telling a story of hardship, triumph, and survival. Kajul stood nearby, his gaze thoughtful. "Your ink has done more than unite us. It has sparked something deeper, a realization that strength is not only in battle but in the stories we carry." Jax nodded, tracing a finger over his own tattoos. Each one was a memory, a milestone, a lesson, but now they meant more. To the Rithari and the others, his tattoos were a living legacy, proof that humanity's battles had been fought in different ways, with hope, creativity, and resilience. Yet the honor came with a price. Jax felt the weight of expectation pressing down. Across the galaxy, stories of the tattoo artist-turned-champion were spreading. Delegates looked to him for guidance, for wisdom. He was no longer just a man with inked skin. He was a leader in a world where ink spoke louder than swords. One evening, as Jax prepared new designs for a group of delegates, Kajul approached with news. "The Council of Elders has requested your presence. They wish to discuss the future of the conclave." Jax's heart tightened. The council was known for its conservative stance, guardians of tradition who rarely embraced change. This meeting could shape the fate of the galaxy's warrior culture. In the grand hall of the council, elders from every species gathered. Their faces were lined with age and wisdom, their eyes sharp with judgment. "You have challenged centuries of tradition," Elder Vecker said, his voice low but firm. "The conclave was founded on the strength of warriors and their scars. Your art is beautiful, but is it enough?" Jax stood tall, feeling the full weight of the room's scrutiny. "Strength is many things," he replied. "It is resilience, courage, and connection. My tattoos are proof of those battles, fought not always with weapons, but with heart and spirit." A tense silence followed. Then, Elder Rena of the Kelthari nodded slowly. "Perhaps the conclave must grow. Your legacy has shown us a new path." The council's debate was fierce and long, but when it ended, a new vision was born. The conclave would not abandon its traditions, but it would embrace a broader definition of strength, one that honored stories, art, and healing alongside combat. Relief washed over Jax, but so did determination. The galaxy was changing, and he would help guide that change. That night, as the ship soared through the stars, Jax sat by a viewport, looking at the swirling cosmos. His tattoos glowed softly under the ship's lights, symbols not just of his, past, but of the future he was helping to shape. He thought about the people who had trusted him, who had shared their stories and pain, and those who had doubted him but now saw him differently. Jax understood now that the real battle wasn't against enemies or aliens. It was the battle to change minds, to build bridges, and to honor the legacies that connected them all. With a steady breath, he made a silent vow. No matter what came next, he would carry the stories of humanity and the galaxy with pride. The galaxy was changing, and so was Jax Cole's role within it. No longer just the tattoo artist who had challenged ancient traditions, he was now a symbol of unity, a living testament that strength wore many forms. The Conclave had embraced a new vision, but with that change came new challenges and new responsibilities. Jax's days were filled with meetings, consultations, and quiet moments spent sketching designs that blended the histories of dozens of species. His tattoos had evolved from personal stories to something far greater, emblems of shared identity. They became bridges across cultural divides, offering hope to old enemies and strangers alike. One morning, Kajul approached him with a grave expression. "A crisis looms. The Krathul Confederation has threatened to withdraw from the Conclave. They see these new ideas as weakness." Jax nodded, understanding. The Krathul were fierce warriors, proud of their scars and victories. To them, the idea of art and healing as strength was alien, even offensive. "If they leave," Kajul said quietly, "it could unravel everything we've built." Jax's mind raced. The Conclave was meant to be a beacon of peace and strength, but the old wounds between species ran deep. Losing the Krathul could reignite conflicts thought long buried. He decided to meet their delegation personally. The Krathul's representative was a towering figure clad in battle-worn armor, her skin marked by intricate scars that told stories of countless battles. Her eyes were sharp but weary. "I've heard much about you," she said, voice low and steady. "The artist who changed the Conclave. But words and ink do not win wars." Jax looked her in the eye. "You're right. But they can prevent wars. My tattoos are reminders, not of bloodshed, but of the reasons we fight and the hope we hold for peace." She studied his inked arms, then the room around them, filled with symbols of different cultures united in purpose. "Show me," she said finally. "Show me why your way is stronger." Over the next days, Jax worked alongside the Krathul warrior, blending their histories into a design that honored both tradition and transformation. The tattoo told a story of resilience and honor, but also of forgiveness and renewal. A mark that spoke to the heart of the Krathul and the hopes of the Conclave. When the warrior wore the tattoo, a hush fell over the chamber. The symbol wasn't just ink. It was a declaration of unity, a silent promise to fight not just for victory, but for coexistence. The Krathul delegation stayed. The threat of withdrawal faded like a shadow at dawn. Word of the new alliance spread quickly. Other species followed suit, seeking tattoos that told their stories and connected them to the greater whole. The Conclave was no longer just a gathering of warriors. It was a living tapestry of history and hope. Jax found himself at the center of this transformation, but he never forgot his roots. He still carried the spirit of Earth in his veins, the resilience of a man who had faced life's battles without a sword, relying instead on art, courage, and the strength to be different. As the Conclave prepared for its next gathering, Jax looked out at the stars, his tattoos glowing softly under the ship's lights. He knew the future was uncertain. There would be challenges, doubts, and new battles to face. But now he was not alone. He was part of a galaxy that had learned to see strength not just in scars but in stories and in the art that told them. The great Conclave had transformed into a beacon of unity unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Jax Cole stood at the heart of it all, his tattoos glowing faintly under the soft light of the Shartel's observation deck. Each symbol etched into his skin was a story, a testament to battles fought, alliances forged, and hope rekindled. As he gazed out into the swirling cosmos, Jax reflected on how far he had come. From a tattoo artist on Earth, misunderstood by aliens who saw his ink as battle scars, to a champion who had redefined strength across countless worlds. His journey was not one of conquest or violence, but of connection. One line, one symbol at a time. The Conclave had become more than a gathering of warriors. It was a sanctuary where histories intertwined, where old enemies found common ground, and where art spoke louder than weapons. Jax's tattoos were no longer just personal marks. They were the galaxy's shared legacy. But peace was never guaranteed. Whispers of dissent still echoed in shadowed corners. Some questioned the new ways, clinging to old beliefs that only bloodshed proved worth. Jax knew these doubts were part of growth, challenges that tested the very heart of unity. Kajul joined him at the viewport, his scaled features thoughtful. "You have done more than we dreamed," he said quietly. "The galaxy listens now, through your ink, through your courage." Jax smiled. "It's not just me. It's everyone who dared to share their stories, who trusted in something beyond fear and conflict." Suddenly, a call came over the comlink. The Council of Elders requested Jax's presence in the assembly chamber. The tone was urgent, yet respectful. Together, they walked to the grand hall where representatives from every corner of the galaxy had gathered. The Council had news. A newly discovered threat lurking beyond known space, one that could endanger everything the Conclave had built. Jax listened intently as the Elders detailed a shadowy force moving steadily toward the heart of the galaxy. It was unlike any enemy faced before, relentless and mysterious. The chamber fell silent after the briefing. All eyes turned to Jax. "Your tattoos carry more than stories," Elderina said. "They carry the strength of unity. Will you help lead us against this new darkness?" Jax felt the familiar weight settle on his shoulders. This was more than ink and art now. It was a call to protect the fragile peace his work had helped create. He nodded firmly. "We fight not just with weapons, but with the bonds we've forged. Together we'll face this threat as one." In the days that followed, Jax traveled the galaxy alongside warriors, diplomats, and artists. He created new tattoos, symbols of alliance and resilience, meant to inspire and unify those preparing for the coming struggle. Every mark was a promise that no matter the darkness, the light of their shared legacy would endure. As the fleet assembled, beneath distant stars, Jax stood among them, a living canvas of their combined histories. His tattoos shimmered in the starlight, each line a reminder that strength was more than muscle and fire. It was heart, spirit, and the courage to tell their stories. And in that moment, Jackson Cole knew that no matter what the future held, the galaxy was ready to face it, together, inked in the stars.